Yeah, today is the 7th, isn't it? Mass. Yeah. Okay. Today is the 7th. If my is it gonna work? Oh, hello, board. Yeah. And all we're gonna do today, like all today. This assignment was a pain to make because I couldn't find a good resource for it anywhere. So I had to make each of these problems by hand, which I know, boo-hoo, but it was a pain. All you're working with today is point slope form. And the good news is that this is not the idea of point slope is not brand new. Anyone remember members like slope intercept is y equals mx plus b? You guys remember what point slope is? Y minus y1 equals n parentheses x minus x. That's it. Way to use those resources. Good job. So this is remember what point slope form of an equation looks like. And it looks like there are 5 variables, but remember that we only replace 3 of them with numbers. And so when we have a point like an x, y, like let's say we had like a 0.3 and a point, say, -2, not, the 0.3 -2, then you'll remember that the 3 goes in place of x1, right? Because it's an x coordinate. And remember that we always replace x1 and y1. We don't mess with just the x and y. And then the -2, where does he go? Into y1. And then the last part of this would, of course, be, let's say that we had a slope, like the slope is 1/2. And that goes in place of m right there, right? So, if this were our first time ever talking about point slope, I'd probably take a little bit more time on this part of the lesson, but we've done this before. Like you've done a lot of this. So today's mission is, if I'm going to give you a graph and you have to write it in point slope. Like you can't, this part of the test, and the reason I say you have to is because there's a decent sized part of the test coming up next week where you cannot write your answers in y equals mx plus b. So like we're not interested in the idea. No, it's not him. It's Dr. Daydreamer over here. We're not interested in things like where does the graph cross the y-axis. We're interested in a point and a slope, and then we are required to write our equations in this format. That's what we're going to practice today. So half of today's lesson, this won't take long, is I give you a graph, you write me the equation. The other half is I give you an equation and you make the graph. Got it? Should be absolutely a walk in the park. I say that. I hope I don't jinx myself, but that's the idea. So we good there? All right, so that's what we're going to do. And I'll try to make some decent graphs here. And this will be hard. This part of the notes is going to be really hard. I don't even know what to tell you as far as, like how to make your notes here because it's hard. I have the ability to do things like this that you do not have, unless you've got some really cool like iPad technology or something like that. So let's say I gave you this line and I asked you to write the equation. So, again, going forward, when you don't have a bossy math teacher telling you what method you have to use, you could look at something like, could I do this the way I always have? Could I observe where this graph crosses the y-axis and then observe the slope and write y equals mx plus b? Do you right away see something that would make that impossible? Do you see the y-intercept? I know it's maybe hard for you to see, but can you see what it is? 3.5. It could be 3 4/7. It could be 3 2/3. It could be 3 5/8. We don't know. It's a tweener. And so for that reason, just observing or eyeballing the y-intercept is just about impossible to do, right? So anyhow, this is what we're doing today. So we're not going to worry about that. What we're going to do is we're going to find these two things, a point and a slope, both of which we're all capable of doing. This will be annoying when we go to grade this because every problem is going to have 3 or 4, potentially 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 right answers. So when we grade these as a class, it's going to be a matter of like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? So ready? Here it goes. I'm going to pick a point. And as you know, I'm not going to pick some ghetto point. I'm going to pick a lattice point. And since I'm the one with the digital pen, I'm just going to pick this one, right? So if I pick that yellow point, I now have the coordinates of a point. I can say definitively that this line goes through the point 2, 5. And like I said, this part of the notes I know is really, really hard, but you just kind of maybe free sketch it and you'll get the idea. I mean, kind of explains itself. If I want a point slope equation, I need a point and a slope. So what else do I need now to find the slope? I need another point. Yeah. So you can't find slope if you only have one point. But what I can do is I can go through here now and I can mark some other good points, non-ghetto points. Like that purple point is wonderful. This green point is wonderful. This white point is wonderful. And this red point is wonderful. So you understand those are all good points, right? We've been down this road because they cross, the points are where the lattice crosses, right? So if I'm going to find the slope, because I need it, I need to look at any 2 points and figure out the staircase between them. Do you have a question? Okay. That was not the question I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a question about slopes and points and stuff. I was like, yeah, oh, nice, a question. I should have. What was I thinking? Dumb. So anyways, the slope of this line is what? And if you still struggle with this, Ben, I feel terrible about that. Yeah, it's 2/3, right? Like, and that, I'm not saying there's something wrong with you, you don't get it, but this is all we've been talking about. So like if I go from any point, like let's say I went from this point to this point, you can clearly see that it's a positive tilt, right? And it's a ratio of 2 rises for every 3 runs. So we can now say that the slope of this line is 2/3. And you'd get the same slope no matter which 2 points on this line you picked, even if you picked 2 points that were really far apart, right? So like if Dallin picked this point way down here, like a weirdo, and then he picked to go all the way across to here, which I hope he wouldn't do that, but if he did, it would still work, wouldn't it? How long is his rise? I believe it's 8. And his run is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if Dallin comes up with that like a cuckoo bird, and he comes up with the slope of 8/12, divide those both by 4, guess what? You still get the same slope. So the one thing that will not change as we go through this assignment is no matter which points, like Mila might pick 2 points that are completely different than Alana, who might pick 2 points that are completely different than Hagen. But what's not going to be negotiable is the slope. The one I've circled in white is something that will be a part of every answer that we write. Clear? So we've picked our yellow point just because I did. So I got the fake pen and I got a slope. Did anyone want to take a stab at what the point slope equation of this red line would be?
Y.
Go ahead.
Y minus 5.
Yep.
X minus 2.
Gorgeous answer. Way to get in there and get her done. That's how you'll be writing today's answers. I know that not everyone listens, so I have to kind of pause and make sure, here we go, make sure you're listening. Don't do anything with this equation beyond this point. Don't distribute, don't get y by itself, don't do any of that stuff. Are we clear? So let's say that someone had picked a different point, like instead of the yellow point that I selected, let's say we went with the white point, this one right here, the one I'm making a little bigger. What are his coordinates? -4, 1. So if someone picked that point, isn't their equation going to be completely different? What's it going to say? What's their answer going to say? Again, gorgeous answers. And when we grade this, you see what I mean? Both of these answers are equally correct. So when I make an answer key, I'll go through every problem and write out every possible. So then when I scan it and like either put it on Canvas or the TV or both, then you'll be able to look and pick and say, is mine there? You obviously don't have to have more than one answer per problem, right? We clear? So a lot of them are only going to have one or two good points. Some of them will have 4 or 5, and that's just what it is. But again, the moral of the story is we need a point, right? And we need a slope, both of which we're capable of. And if we get them, then we can just plug them in and make them look like those red equations at the bottom of the board. We agree that's pretty doable, huh? Okay. Now, the other side of this is, how do I graph a line when someone gives it to me in point slope form? And it's pretty slick and easy. So, and then I'm almost done. This will only take just a couple more minutes, and then the rest of the hour you can knock this assignment out. The assignment that took me an hour and 45 minutes to create, you'll probably finish in about 21 minutes. If that, might be 16 minutes. It'll be quick. Here we go. If I give you an equation that's in point slope like this, remember, old version of this lecture would have been, okay, everybody, let's go ahead and distribute the negative 2/3, and then let's add 4 to both sides. That's not the goal. Today's goal is to take a direct line into making a graph without doing anything with the equation. Can you guys tell me, based on this equation, the name of the point that this line goes through? What is it? -2. +4. Very good. You have to be able to look at that point slope equation and remember that the equation by default has minuses in it. So if you see x +2, your coordinate is actually -2 because you're trying to make that parenthesis set equal 0. So you have to do the opposite. That's the goal here. And then I think to myself, okay, if it says y -4, the opposite of -4 is a +4. And of course, sorry that I have to ask this question. You're going to feel like I'm insulting your intelligence, but could you tell me the slope of this line? Right. And so I feel now like if I have those two pieces of information, I can make a line. I don't need a y-intercept to make a line. I need a point and I need a slope. So how do I get to the point -2, 4? I go left 2, up 4, and I make my first dot. We're not used to that. We're so used to our first home base dot being the y-intercept. It doesn't have to be, depending on the situation. And how do I track a slope of -2/3? Down 2, right 3. Thank you, Jeff. Down 2, right 3. Down 2, right 3. Make a line. Okay. What's that, buddy? Oh, you meant up 2 and back to the left 3? Yeah, of course, absolutely. So let me knock another one up here. I'm going to try to cover all of the weird sort of things that you might see. Whee! How about this one? First off, is that written in point slope form? Yeah. Yes, it is. It just doesn't look like it to you because you're used to saying like there has to be y plus something or y minus something. Is there a something after that y? No. There is a 0. We just, as you've heard me say for months now, we elect oftentimes not to put zeros where they don't need to be. So when I give you a problem like this, I'm not like trying to trick you and troll you and say like, this one's not in point slope, suckers. It is in point slope, but I, as with most of your math teachers, am not going to write like y -0. It's just your job to know that it's there, right? Okay. So having said that, if the equation looks like this, can you give me the coordinates of the point that the line passes through? -6 and 0. Good job. And what is the slope? 2. So if I have a point, I can go and make a home base, right? And then from that home base, I can track. I better know how to do slope by now. So I'm going to go to the point. How do I get to -6, 0? You go left 6. And you just make a dot, right? So there's my new home base. That's my starter point. And what does the slope of 2 mean to us? Up 2, right 1. So I'm going to go up 2, right 1. up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. Or like Landon reminded us, we can go back. Let's make the most of our real estate. Back it up, go down and left because you get that same uphill tilt too. And then you grab a ruler and make a line, and that's that. The purpose of today, one day, was to teach you, bless you, was to teach you how to look at a line and write its point slope equation, or two, if given a point slope equation, write the line based on that. Clear? Is that clearer than mud? All right. Well, then I'm going to end this recording and I'm going to hand out this beast of an assignment. It's 4 pages just because graphs take a lot of space, but it's only 24 problems. I don't want you noisy goofballs working together today. And you guys are going to do is talk about trailer hitches and trucks and stuff.
No, okay.